Guys, welcome to the Rolling On channel. If it's your first time joining us, my name's Zach, and if you've been here before, welcome back. Today we're going to be taking a look at this 4-foot long Enforcer RC boat. I've been looking for one of these things for a while now, and I found one about an hour from my house. Price was right. I think I paid $125 or $150 for this. Went down the highway in the Honda Del Sol, and this boat almost didn't fit in the trunk. I don't know, someone would have had to help hold it in the passenger seat if that happened. But anyway, we're going to see if we can't get this thing running. I ordered some electronics for it, and I think it's going to be pretty fun to run this around this summer. So, if you think that's cool, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and follow along in the adventure. Love to have you, and I'd love to hear from you in the comments. How close this thing was to not fitting in the trunk. So this is a pretty neat little boat. It has like a metal rudder and a metal propeller. Has a really cool pipe on it. See how that sounds. I bet it's pretty cool. I heard from someone that this is a rebranded home light. It has kind of a cool head on it. It looks to me like it has a water jacket for cooling, which is kind of neat. The carburetor, just by the feeling of this bubble here, the diaphragm is probably pretty hard and crackly in there, so I'll probably replace this carb. Motor mounts, the thing's just kind of free floating in here, so I'll have to address that. I've been kind of trying to brush up on my RC stuff. I don't know much about this type of thing, but basically it is pretty simple. There's a servo for the rudder, and there's a servo for the throttle. Someone took the servo for the throttle, but the servo for the rudder is still hooked up. I'm probably going to replace it anyway. So I need to make this box watertight, put a new carb on, and I'll show you some of the parts that I got for this to get it running. So the guy gave me a gallon bag that had some miscellaneous parts in it. Here's a old fuel filter that looks like it was manufactured at the beginning of time. It says Japan on it. We'll probably replace the fuel filter. Didn't come with a gas tank, so I'll have to get one of those. This is labeled front motor, but I don't know what this little pipe's for. There's this. I don't know what it's for. It looks to me like it mounts off the back of the boat, and maybe this is some of the plumbing for the water-cooled motor. Extra propeller. This is a little battery box, I think, for the receiver. And then this is the water pump, because like I said, this thing has a little water jacket in the head. So this is what we have to work with here. I'm hoping that this water pump works. This is pretty cool, actually. It's a Walboro water pump. And, I mean, I see a lot of Walboro carburetors, but this is a water pump. So, like I said, I did a lot of looking around and research in order to see what I needed for this. I ordered this on Amazon for like 37 bucks or something. It's a transmitter receiver. Oh, it comes with some stickers. But this is just a little transmitter receiver. And we'll see how it does. 40 bucks, that's not very expensive. But in here, I didn't even open this yet. This is a little lever, I guess, they sent with the servo. And then this is a high torque servo motor. I believe it's the one that is supposed to go with this boat. An HS645MG. So this is all news to me. I have this little receiver here, and I just plugged the battery into channel 1, 4 AA's, 6 volts, and then I plugged this servo into channel 6. When I take channel 6 and I go like this, it moves the servo back and forth. Make this do something else. Oh! Here's slot number 1. Or actually, that's slot number 2. The battery's in 1. Okay, so when I pulled the trigger, that had to have been the easiest thing I've ever done. Okay, so that just works. But these things aren't cheap. This thing was like 45 bucks or something, which is a lot, I think. Look at this thing. Fits in the palm of my hand. Okay, so this boat was missing motor mounts when I got it. So I'm going to order those. Thought about just trying to make something, but it's probably not worth it. So that hole is about an inch. So I need 1-inch rubber isolators for that. This one's all rusty and crusty. I'll be surprised if I can even get it out of here. Just like that. And the rudder's free for the first time in probably 20 years. Okay, well that servo motor was a tight fit in there. Okay, look at this thing. That has been in there for a good while. I still have the other end of this sitting in there, so I could have soldered this, but that probably wasn't worth it. This little rubber boot on here, and it's really brittle. I'm gonna cheat a little on the second one. Yeah, I won't reuse that. I'll put my own little rubber piece on there because that is not keeping any water out. It's funny because you can see that that hole is nowhere close to being centered under that seal. And this exhaust pipe is really loose. I'm hoping that once I put a gasket in up here, it's going to tighten up a lot of this. Alright, so that'll be pretty good. Next thing I'll do is take this exhaust off and I'll make a gasket for this. This one had a washer and the other one didn't. Okay. How's that for cool? That thing is really neat. Piston looks really good in there. I think the key is to use harder wood. That's it right there. Looks pretty good. So I just realized I have this throttle cable. I probably pulled this off a bike when I was like 12. But I'm going to use it to make a longer throttle cable for this. So this cable isn't quite long enough. It needs to come over here to pick up the throttle. So I'm going to see. I think this is just soldered on the end here. Ow! Melting my finger. Alright, well that ain't working. Okay. Okay. Looks like this comes apart. Like that. I always thought this little lever was kind of cool, which is why I kept it, but I don't really need it. Now we need to see how long the old throttle cable needs to be here. This is a nice piece of tubing. Okay, this hole needs to be a little bit bigger for this. We do want it to be tight, but I don't know if we want her that tight. Like butter. Die grinders are literally my favorite tool. Okay, now I'll spray some WD down through here. Alright, it came flying out this end, so that's what we wanted. We'll just run some WD-40 down our line too, clean it up nice. That's moving like butter from side to side. So that'll be good for when I go to hook up the car, but it'll save me 10 bucks on Amazon. And I'll put this throttle cable somewhere for a rainy day. It's not like I can't use this for something else in the future. barely takes up any space, and it costs a lot of money for this type of little stuff. So I just like to keep stuff like that around. And then I'll keep this housing, and when I cut off that cable, I'll have the other half of this for something else. Not to mention this cool little lever cast in Japan. So that's neat. This is the softest fuel line I've touched in a long time. Goes in there, but it's a pretty tight fit. It was really hard to film this, but basically I just screwed that board in there. And I'm going to screw the gas tank to that just to hold it in place. And it looks like my flashlight's about dead. So I'm going to put a new battery in that also. Okay, just like that, this gas tank is not going to go anywhere. I got two of the same ones on eBay for 13 bucks for the pair, I think. So that's a pretty good deal if you ask me. Comes with all different sorts of linkages here, and some screws, some little bushings. And it says it's a Futaba. Even if it's off-brand, it's a direct fit. So it'll work for what we need, I think. So it comes with these little rubber bushings, and the rubber bushings squish in here. And then they gave me these little brass or brass plated bushings to slide down in here. These are pretty nice. Hey, we're in. Hopefully I didn't break this thing. All right. So that certainly isn't going to move in there. This other servo, this is the throttle servo. I don't know if it's really touchy variably, but this thing was like 45 bucks. Just like that, I added probably $1 value to this part, depending on how valuable you think my time is here. Oh, right in. And this one comes with screws that are quite a bit bigger. The linkages for this are beefier, it's heavier, so that must be a nicer servo. And this came with a lot beefier linkages than that one. And on top of that, it came with this nice machined aluminum part, which I don't know if I'll use that or not. It depends on how it fits in here, but it's pretty neat. Alright, so this is our throttle linkage here, which I'm going to reuse, but first I need to get this thing off of here. Well, that was pretty easy, huh? I think you can tell this thing is fairly crooked. I'm going to try to straighten it out here. Okay, I think I'm pretty happy with that. That's going to do what it needs to, and it's still threaded on the end, which is the important thing to me. Probably clean it up with some sandpaper now. Okay, so here's how the water pump on a boat works. An RC boat anyway. I bet regular boats are pretty similar though. So this tube here plugs into the crankcase, and it sends a little puff of air every time the crank spins. This is your pickup that goes in the lake. That'll be plumbed into this tube, which will go down into the water. And then this loops through a water jacket in your cylinder head. You can see the inlet for that right there. And then when your engine runs, alright, so I don't think that these bolts are going to be reused, so I'm just going to snip those off there, I think. That slides in there. Oh. One thing's for sure, you're not going to get any water through this hole. I couldn't stand there being an unnecessary connection there. Well, that'll do, and that certainly will not come back off of there. Ow! I really need to get a tetanus shot one of these days. One of these days. Ow. Ow. It's almost like someone patched this fiberglass piece in here to hold the water line. I don't know that, but it sure seems that way. And then it just loops around there. And then I need one line to go from here to here, and then this ties into the exhaust. I'll probably just let that one go. And I'll just say, these little connections that someone was using would probably be fine. But anyone that knows boats knows that the less connections to water that you can have inside of your boat, the better, because connections always seem to find a way to leak. And I basically just eliminated 2 or 3 connectors just by taking these out of here and straight piping from here to here. And there's just no reason for it. Used a little bit less heat that time, and I think that worked a little bit better. I probably used too much heat on these other 2. Hook this up now for proof of concept. Okay, last thing I want to do is just throw these screws in here to hold this pump in, even though it's pretty snug the way it is. So I get this plate tightened in here. This thing isn't going anywhere. I'm really happy with how it turned out. But then I look over here and somehow I didn't see these holes. That's totally where this pump was mounted before. And then I wouldn't have had to screw around with that plate or anything like that. And it would have been way easier. But I just don't understand, why would they put through holes right into the radio box? That's just another leak path that's unnecessary. They could have totally just mounted that out here. Alright, so I'm going to use the 3rd hole up. And I'm just putting a 9/64 hole in this. Alright, so I need a bend to go straight down right here. We'll see how this works. I didn't feel like spending $7 on the connector, so that's why we bent that like that. Okay. Now I will screw this end piece back on. We're in. And then this little clamp slides. So I just took this screw out of here because I'm going to use this to mount a little plate for the switch. And I don't know why they used screws with such big heads, but if you look, there's a pretty substantial amount of metal lipped there that's keeping this from sitting against the aluminum housing here, and I don't really like it. These are made in the USA. And this just goes to show that all things made in the USA aren't fantastic, because this is a little bit of a ridiculous design here. Might have to like put screws down through here. Now Klein's, these are my go-to wire strippers. I'm just gonna tuck my ground down behind that enclosure, and that screw will hold that in. Oh. Alright, well I don't anticipate there being any issues with this. It's pretty nice. Alright, Carb's on. So my plan is to actually move the throttle from here over to here, even though there's already a hole here for the throttle, because this wants to hit on the side. I just bought this much hardware at the hardware store, and it was like $8, $7 or something like that. Unreal. Literally like a pinky's worth. A pinky's worth of hardware for $7. Ow! I just heated something up with a blowtorch and then grabbed it with my fingers. These were the wrong size and shipped from China. Took forever. Cost me like $15. I just found the right size with the right size stud and the right size rubber. I found them from a company called, I think, Rubber Isolators on eBay, and they sold a 2-pack of garage door isolators that were the same dimensions that I need here, and they were $5 cheaper than what they sold for this specific boat. All right, the motor mounts are in, finally. Freaking clicker just broke out of my zip tie. You gotta be joking. I gotta get these tubes into the gas tank. So I have my 2 lines coming out of my tank now. Clear line is usually the fuel line. Clear line goes to the fuel filter in the bottom of the tank. Your yellow line, which is usually bigger, goes to your primer bulb, and you could just call this your return line. So fuel comes in your fuel line or your inlet and goes out your primer bulb. So there's an inlet and an outlet. So fuel goes through the fuel line into the carb, and as you prime it, your primer sucks fuel into the carb through the fuel line and pushes it back into your return line into your gas tank. If you don't have one of these tanks yet, I highly recommend them. They make pouring gas way more pleasurable than the EPA tanks. That about wraps up the boat project for now. A few things to button up on, or I gotta hook up the antenna for the radio, maybe do a little bit of tuning. Can't run it right now though because there's about a foot of ice on the lake. Everyone's out ice fishing right now. Haven't had good ice coverage for the last few winters, and now I want to run my boat and it's all frozen over. So you'll have to subscribe and wait to see that in the spring. Lots of other projects I've been working on. I'm really excited about this one. I'll give you a little sneak peek of this thing. This is a sickle bar sharpener from the early 1900s. Looks really nice with this IH red. And I'm going to finish putting this together, see how it works, and maybe give a little demo. So that video is coming out soon. That's going to be really neat, I think. If you like the video, please drop me a like. It doesn't cost you anything, and it really helps out my channel. If you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel and join the adventure. And until next time, guys, take care.